This is like a music festival where I'm grabbing the stars from the stage with a quick impromptu chat. We've just finished the first session of the Festival of Media. It's Monday, and I have here on my left Jimmy Wells, the founder of Wikipedia. On my right, Jack Klues, who sits on the board of Publicis and runs Publicis Group Media. And we have Marc Bresseel, who runs global agency partnerships for Microsoft. So three individuals who can talk a lot about change, digital and disruption. I'm looking at two cameras, so I'm going to be looking all over the place. One of the things, Jimmy, that came out of your presentation was just the speed of growth of Wikipedia since you had this amazing and rather big, mighty idea back in 2001. We're an industry that's going through a profound amount of change, and it's interesting to see how different companies respond. Tell me, the big players in the marketplace at the time, like Encyclopedia Britannica, how did they respond when they started to see the rise of Wikipedia? What did they do?
Well, in the early days, they didn't even know we existed. We came from a community basis, a group of people working together on the internet, and they didn't care or notice us. By the time they did notice us, I think it was too late. And in general, they've not responded at all, really. Britannica's had a very tough time adjusting to a new environment. We've seen that in a lot of media organizations. Some have been quite smart about trying to adapt in the new times, and some have just stuck their head in the sand and gone downhill as a result.
Yeah. So what does that say about the role of challenges in this new economy?
Well, things move very quickly. One of the things that I always like to remind people is that if you have a brand that's an old brand, very famous brand, you may imagine that a new competitor can't arise without spending a huge amount of money to gain the brand recognition that you have. But this is no longer true. A brand that people will talk about, that people will care about, that can be viral, can explode very, very quickly. And that's not just in the digital space. It's everywhere.
Tell me, you're talking about brands, so I opened up to other two guests, but you don't allow advertising on Wikipedia. You depend, at least on your charitable side of your business, on the donations of the users, which I gather is going well. But are you tempted to stick a couple of banners on there? You've got 800 million users, wonderful traffic, presumably amazing usage data for behavioral targeting. What are you waiting for?
Well, we're a charity. We're a non-profit organization. We're like a national park or a library. This is not the right environment for advertising. And I'm not anti-commerce, anti-advertising. At Wikia, we have ads all over the site and work with brands to try to build things. There are places for it, and, if you open up a car magazine and you see an ad for a car, that seems normal to you. Right. If you, go to your kid's school and see an ad for McDonald's, it doesn't seem right. So, it's an aesthetic thing.
It's a big respect issue, though, too, for people, your users, and people in our clients' consumers.
Jack, you were talking a bit to us about Coca-Cola, speaking on behalf of Stop the Queue, who couldn't make it through the dust cloud. About a year ago now, Vivaki, the CEO of Coke, said that the company just was getting too inward-looking, to your point about big brands. And obviously they're desperately trying to change that. In terms of marketing, what do you see coming out of the Coca-Cola company that you think really does speak to a new era of marketing and communication?
In some ways, if Scott was here, and I don't know if he'd agree with me or not, I feel like it's a little bit in Coca-Cola world, it's a little bit about Back to the Future. It wasn't that long ago that Coca-Cola was in the content business. It wasn't that long ago Coca-Cola owned a movie studio. In a way, although in a new millennium kind of way, I think Coca-Cola is getting back into the content business. Some of it is content, as I was saying in my remarks, content sourcing. It'll be a partnership with the likes of a Microsoft or more traditional media owners. Sometimes it'll be borrowed, and sometimes it'll be owned and created and put on various forms of digital and broadcast air. But I'd say one of the big things is that their kind of renewed commitment and appreciation that content acts as the connective glue, if you will, and their permission to provide people with something of value in exchange for hopefully their love. And so I think I'd say a big part of it's going to be content.
That's interesting. What are the implications of that in terms of the way it spends its traditional media space now? It's a big advertiser in outdoor, big advertiser in traditional 30-second spot network television advertising. Are you anticipating a big sea change in the way that money's spent?
I think that a sea change. guess I don't see it as a sea change because I don't think they spend as much in traditional broadcast as you might think. And I think they've already moved into a number of different channels, both digital and analog. But I do think you'll see them, as I probably tried to lamely do justice to their movement into the social space. I mean, there are clearly people who love their product, who are forming their own fan clubs, and I think Coke's been quite clever and moved in a way that they've tried to partner in those social situations and not try to smack an ad on it or try to overtly control the conversations. The one thing that if Scott was sitting here, he'd say is that in those social Facebook environments for Coke, there's no problem in raising the notion that someone might say in that community that they like Pepsi. Coca-Cola would certainly allow that. All they want to be, much like Jim and Wiki, all they want to do is manage the conversations because they should be civil and adult. Get rid of the profanity, get rid of the inappropriateness and the rude behavior. But other than that, it's pretty much fair game and be a part of the conversation.
And that brings it to an interesting dynamic, and we've discovered this over the last 3 days of trying to change very quickly to very changing circumstances. And I guess with brands and companies, it's even harder. You've got the situation where if the blogosphere is changing its opinion about your brand, what do you do to get it back? I mean, the problem that clients have is the willingness to release control, and that's probably the biggest difficulty within the culture of any large traditional organization. I mean, talking to Microsoft, one of the very biggest is helping clients with how to manage branding in the blogosphere. What do you say about this issue of control and trying to retain a brand ethos and a brand message when really it's the consumers that are manage that message now, not the marketing department?
Well, I think there's a couple of steps, right? First of all, you need to acknowledge that there's a world out there that you can't control, and the consumers talk about you. That's the first step. And there's still a lot of marketeers who sort of ignore the world that if I don't control it, doesn't exist. It exists. 15% of all the tweets I just mentioned are talking about, are actually consumers giving an opinion about a brand or a product or a consumer experience they have with Delta Airlines or whatever. Right? So it is out there. The second thing is, try to monitor and try to at least understand what the conversations are all about. So I just gave an opinion around how Looking Glass can help you at least understand what conversations are happening, and then based on that, you need to take some action, right? Sometimes there's like outrageous mistakes on the web. It's very easy to correct in an adult and mature way if somebody says something wrong, or specifically in our products. You can in an intelligent way as a corporation inject yourself in the conversation, saying this is the Microsoft side that actually talks about that product. This is the fix to the bug. This is the correct thing you're referring to. You can engage in the conversation. And then there is steps that you can go beyond there. I think that's where Fox is quite intelligent, where they actually see there's 6 pictures, for instance, that are very famous. Then they're gonna start promoting those pictures rather than take other 6 where there's little uptake. You can use it into your advantage of.
Thank you.